I was invited here, and I was told my opponent, whether it was Biden or Kamala, I was told my opponent was going to be here. It turned out my opponent isn't here. You invited me under false pretense. And then you said, you can't do it with Zoom. Well, where's Zoom? She's going to do it with Zoom, and she's not coming. And then you were half an hour late. Just so we understand, I have too much respect for you to be late. They couldn't get their equipment working or something was wrong.
Mr. President, I would love if you can answer the question on your rhetoric and why you believe that black voters should trust you with another 4 years.
I have been the best president for the black population since Abraham Lincoln.
Man, there is so much to break down from the complete rudeness from Rachel Scott to Trump being a warrior for going into the lion's den like this. Hey guys, welcome back to the Conservative Core, where our goal is to shine a light on the ridiculousness of the left. If you're new here, don't forget to hit the subscribe, notification button, and like button. In this video, we're going to break down the NABJ conference in Chicago. So when it comes to handling hostile interactions, especially with someone like Donald Trump, it's always going to be a crucial moment. The media will dissect every little word he says and try to say he said certain things. They will take it out of context by only showing short snippets of what he said, not showing the whole clip. And this whole conference was a clear double standard. Ask yourself this: would this woman ever talk to Kamala Harris or Joe Biden like this? The answer is likely a resounding no. But what really stood out here is how Trump handled it. He didn't back down or shy away, which resonates with a lot of people who see through the media's facade. It's these moments where his strength and resilience shine through, especially compared to others who might avoid such confrontations altogether. And let's not forget, there was supposed to be an event involving both Trump and Kamala Harris. But when Trump agreed to show up in person, Harris opted for a Zoom appearance, even though they said they could not do that for Trump. But let's run the conference clip.
Mr. President, we so appreciate you giving us an hour of your time. I want to start by addressing the elephant in the room, sir. A lot of people did not think it was appropriate for you to be here today. You have pushed false claims about some of your rivals, from Nikki Haley to former President Barack Obama, saying that they were not born in the United States, which is not true. You have told 4 congresswomen of color who were American citizens to go back to where they came from. You have used words like animal and rabid to describe black district attorneys. You've attacked black journalists, calling them a loser, saying the questions that they ask are, quote, stupid and racist. You've had dinner with a white supremacist at your Mar-a-Lago resort. So my question, sir, now that you are asking black supporters to vote for you, why should black voters trust you after you have used language like that?
Well, first of all, I don't think I've ever been asked a question in such a horrible manner. First question. You don't even say, hello, how are you? Are you with ABC? Because I think they're a fake news network, a terrible network.
Okay, I'm going to stop it right here and break this down real quick because this is absurd. When confronted with such a loaded question, it's essential to separate the facts from the narrative spun by the media, and we know they love to do this. Firstly, Trump's initial reaction to the questioner's tone is understandable. It's not just about the words used, it's about the approach. Being immediately attacked with a litany of accusations without even a courteous introduction sets a confrontational tone. This kind of behavior is not only disrespectful, but also indicative of a premeditated agenda. From the start, you knew this was how the whole interview was going to be. They were going to try and make Trump look as bad as possible. This wasn't moderate grounds, it was an attack to try and hurt Trump. The question itself is filled with generalizations and misrepresentations that have been perpetuated by a media that often leans against Trump. For example, the claims about Trump's comments regarding people like Nikki Haley or President Obama have been taken out of context or exaggerated to fit the media's narrative. As for the dinner with supremacists, Trump has numerous times disavowed this and condemned these ideologies. He does not stand for that, and there are dozens of clips of him saying this. The media, however, tends to ignore this because they just want to paint him in a negative light. But with that being said, let's break down the rest of this question, even though it really isn't a question.
I think it's disgraceful that I came here in good spirit. I love the black population of this country. I've done so much for the black population of this country. Including employment, including opportunity zones with Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina, which is one of the greatest programs ever for black workers and black entrepreneurs. I've done so much, and and I say this, historically black colleges and universities were out of money, they were stone cold broke, and I saved them, and I gave them long-term financing, and nobody else was doing it. I think it's a very rude introduction. I don't know exactly why you would do something like that. And let me go a step further. I was invited here, and I was told my opponent, whether it was Biden or Kamala, I was told my opponent was going to be here. It turned out my opponent isn't here. You invited me under false pretense. And then you said, you can't do it with Zoom. Well, where's Zoom? She's going to do it with Zoom, and she's not coming. And then you were half an hour late. Just so we understand, I have too much respect for you to be late. They couldn't get their equipment working or something
Mr.
was
President,
wrong.
I would love
I think
if you
it's
can
a
answer
very
the question
nasty
on your rhetoric
question.
and why you
I have
believe that
answered
black
the
voters
question.
should trust you with another 4
I have
years.
been the best president for the black population since Abraham Lincoln. That's my answer.
Better than President Johnson, who signed the Voting Rights Act?
And for you to start off a question and answer period, especially when you're 35 minutes late because you couldn't get your equipment to work, in such a hostile manner, I think it's a disgrace.
So we know how hostile they were going to be from the start. But Trump really came out strong here with his response. I mean, he did so much, and his track record should speak for himself, even though the media will try to make it seem like this never happened. And here are the facts. One of the hallmark achievements of the Trump administration, in collaboration with Senator Tim Scott, was the creation of opportunity zones. These zones were established as part of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017 and were designed to spur economic development and job creation in economically distressed communities. The Opportunity Zone program incentivizes private investment in these areas by offering capital gains tax relief to investors. Specifically, investors can defer capital gains taxes on profits from investments in these zones and can reduce or eliminate taxes on any new gains if they hold the investment for a certain period, typically 10 years. The impact of Opportunity Zones has been particularly significant for Black communities, as many of these designated areas are in regions with high African American populations. By attracting private capital, these zones aim to revitalize neighborhoods, improve infrastructure, and create jobs. This initiative encourages long-term investment and development, leading to sustainable economic growth. This has been a slam dunk and is still paving the way. Trump also emphasized his administration's support for historically Black colleges and universities, also known as HBCUs. One of the key actions taken was the permanent funding of these institutions through the Future Act, which secured $255 million annually for HBCUs and other minority-serving institutions. This was a significant step because, prior to this legislation, funding for HBCUs was often precarious and required renewal, creating financial uncertainty. In addition to securing funding, Trump's administration also simplified the application process for federal student aid, making it easier for students at HBCUs to use to access necessary financial support. By ensuring long-term financial stability for these institutions, the administration aimed to support the education and development of Black students, providing them with the resources and opportunities to succeed. Now there is more as well.
Some of your own supporters, including Republicans on Capitol Hill, have labeled Vice President Kamala Harris, who is the first Black and Asian American woman to serve as vice president and be on a major party ticket, as a DEI hire. Is that acceptable language to you? And will you tell those Republicans and those supporters to stop it?
How do you define DEI? Go ahead. How do you define
diversity, equity, inclusion?
Okay, yeah, go ahead. Is that what your definition?
That is
give me a
literally
definition
the words
then. Would you give me a definition
DEI.
of that? Give me a definition of
Sir,
that.
I'm asking you a question,
No,
a
you
very
have to
direct
define
question.
it. Define it for me, if you would.
I just defined it, sir. Do you believe that Vice President Kamala Harris is only on the ticket because she is a Black woman?
Well, I can say no. I think it's maybe a little bit different. So I've known her a long time indirectly, not directly very much. And she was always of Indian heritage.
Okay, so what we're going to cook today is an Indian recipe.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
you are Indian.
Yes.
Okay, and I don't know that everybody knows that, but I find that wherever I go and I see Indian people at the supermarket, on the street, everyone's like, you know Kamala Harris is Indian, right? It's like the thing we're so excited about to have you running for president.
Yeah.
So we're both Indian,
Yes.
but actually we're both South Indian.
Yes. You look like the entire one half of my family.
Okay, thank you.
You do.
Certainly, you could become the first Indian senator in U.S. history, which would be quite an accomplishment.
Not good.
And she was only promoting Indian heritage. I didn't know she was Black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn Black, and now she wants to be known as Black. So I don't know, is she Indian or is she Black?
She has always
But you know
identified
what?
as a Black woman.
I
She went to a
respect
historically
either
Black
one.
college.
I respect either one.
Okay, got to stop this here again. That is a lie. She has not always identified as a Black woman. Heck, we just showed you the clips where she didn't. Any notion that only Black people go to historically Black colleges and universities is just plain wrong. HBCUs are open to students of all races and ethnicities. This includes white, Hispanic, and Asian students, among others. The idea that only Black students attend these schools is a misunderstanding of their mission and role in the education system. But let's keep running the clip.
A lot of problems with it, but one of the big problems, and a lot of the journalists in this room I know and I have great respect for, a lot of the journalists in this room are Black. I will tell you that coming from the border are millions and millions of people that happen to be taking Black jobs. You had the best
What exactly is a black job, sir?
A black job is anybody that has a job. That's what it is. Anybody that has a job.
All right.
And
Mr. President,
they're taking the employment away from black people. They're coming in, they're invading. It's an invasion of millions of people, probably 15, 16, 17 million people. What's going to happen to those people? What's going to happen to the people in Portland that destroyed that city?
But sir, my question is on those.
What's going to happen to the people that tried to burn?
My question is on those rioters who assaulted officers.
You have to
would you pardon
what's
those
going to
people?
happen? Oh, absolutely, I would.
You would pardon those?
If they're innocent, I would pardon them.
They've been convicted.
And by the way, the Supreme Court just well, they were convicted by a very tough system. How come the people that tried to burn down Minneapolis, how come the people that took over a large percentage of Seattle, how come nothing happened to them? How come the people
But sir, we're talking about people that were seen beating officers with flagpoles, dragging them down the stairs. They're on video. Have you seen that video, sir?
Oh, really? Well,
you would pardon those rioters?
They shot a young lady in the face who was protesting. They shot her in the face. You know, nobody died that day. You do know that. But people died in Seattle. Nobody died, but people died in Minneapolis. You know, people died in Minneapolis. And nothing happens, and nobody ever talks, and nothing happens to those people. But you went after the J6 people with a vengeance. And I'll tell you what about the cops that were, and I'm all for the police, as you know, but what about the police that are ushering everybody into the Capitol? Go in. What about that? Look, nothing is perfect in life, but you have people from Minneapolis, you have people just from 5 days ago in Washington, D.C. They were having fistfights and fighting with the police. They were spraying and destroying, they were desecrating our monuments in Washington, D.C. 5 days ago, and nothing happened to them.
Let's pause it again. The thing that really gets a lot of people annoyed is the clear double standard in how justice is applied, particularly when comparing different groups of people. The January 6th events have led to a wide range of legal outcomes, and many believe that the charges and sentences have been disproportionately harsh for some individuals involved. For instance, some argue that certain January 6th participants, especially those who were simply just walking around, have faced excessive charges and penalties compared to other cases of civil unrest. But then you have people who were being bailed out by Kamala and the Minnesota Freedom Fund, who are doing much worse.
Nothing is perfect in life, but you have people from Minneapolis, you have people just from 5 days ago in Washington, D.C. They were having fistfights and fighting with the police. They were spraying and destroying, they were desecrating our monuments in Washington, D.C. 5 days ago, and nothing happened to them. And you can't have two systems of justice. That's why they went after me as a political opponent, because they felt they couldn't win without doing that. And we're going to win our cases and we're going to be vindicated. But I have to spend a lot of time on that and money. That's what they want. After the election, they won't care. Although in my case, I think they probably will, because the hatred is pretty deep. But I'll tell you, they went after me as a political opponent. That's never happened in our country before. And it sets a terrible, terrible precedent.
Spot on. I mean, look at this. And this really pissed me off. The interviewer is just not interested. It's a clear example of media bias at work. The interviewer's body language and the tone of her questions reveal a deep-seated hostility. Instead of providing a neutral platform for discussion, she's clearly approaching this with an agenda. It's supposed to be an interview. The fact is this: most people want our country to thrive. Personally, I wish these last 4 years were great. I wish they did much better than Trump did. It would make my life easier. Inflation would be low, buying a house wouldn't be so out of reach for so many, and the border wouldn't be a mess, but the Democrats flopped. Instead of focusing on fixing these issues or offering tangible solutions, what have we seen? For the past 8 years, it has been a relentless campaign to attack Trump. It's become a default strategy for the Democrats. When you don't have solid achievements or policies to campaign on, the fallback is to attack your opponent. This isn't just a strategy, it's a smokescreen. They can't run on their record because it's been underwhelming at best. So they shift the narrative to painting Trump as the villain, hoping that this will distract from their own failures. The reality is that while Trump was in office, there were policies that some people agreed with and others that they didn't. But what's clear now is that the alternative offered by the Democrats hasn't exactly set the world on fire. The economic struggles, the problems with immigration, and the overall management of the country's affairs have not improved as promised. The Democrats have had ample opportunity to prove themselves, but instead of addressing the issues head-on, they've chosen to focus on vilifying Trump. It's a classic case of trying to win by default. If they can't convince people that their policies are working, they'll try to convince them that Trump is the problem. It's a tactic that avoids accountability and responsibility for the real issues at hand. It's a shame because what most people want is straightforward, effective governance, policies that make a difference, and a focus on solving the problems that affect everyday lives. When the focus shifts to personal attacks and political gains, it detracts from the real work that needs to be done. We need a political discourse that prioritizes solutions and accountability over divisive tactics and blame games. Well, that's all I got for this one. Thanks for watching, and make sure to subscribe, hit the notification bell, and like this video for more conservative news daily. Also, what part was your favorite? Let us know in the comments below. See you in the next one.